Welcome to the Across the Bar podcast, where we talk about why today's headlines are important to your success at work. My name is Peter Raybar, and I'm your first call on legal issues. And today we have a very special guest co-host with us. Laura is on a well-deserved summer break. So joining us is a mutual friend of mine and Laura's, Liz Plosser. Liz, welcome.
Thanks, Peter. I'm a big fan of the show, so this is very exciting to be part of it for today.
Liz has an incredibly successful Substack in the fitness world called Best Case Scenario. So if you're not a subscriber, you should subscribe. But also notably, she was amongst the many, career accomplishments, the editor-in-chief of Women's Health magazine. And so, Liz, we look forward to your contributions here today, and we have some special topics that I think you will have some special insight on. So
yes, and I get to play Laura today, which is fun because Laura and I, fun fact, actually worked together years ago at Hearst. We were teammates at Cosmopolitan and shared a cubicle area. And so this is fun to follow Laura's career and to get a step in for her. So I'll do my best, Laura, today, but I'm excited about the topics that we're going to get into. First of all, one that I've been tracking and wrote about in my Substack very recently, the rise of GLP-1s and how that has created some awkward conversations in the workplace. Curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I love awkward workplace conversations, so everybody knows that.
There are so many awkward work conversations, yes. Well, your perspective will be helpful here because it sounds like HR is getting involved, or maybe should be. You have a reader question that I'm excited to hear. We want to talk about what's going on with board diversity and how this administration is impacting what companies are looking for in their board members. There's a article that's gone slightly viral about goodbye messages when folks leave their workplace and how you should handle those. Is there a right, wrong way to do so? LinkedIn has added a new button where users can tell others if they think a post is AI slop. So let's talk about that. And finally, before Heroes and Zeros, we are going to talk about office gyms, a topic near and dear to my heart. So let's get into it.
Used to be one of my favorite topics, but I no longer have an office with a gym. So
I don't either since I work for myself, but I've been to many office gyms and I have thoughts.
Have you ever thought of becoming an office gym consultant?
I actually did think about that. I thought about that when I still worked in corporate America and for a hot second afterward. But you know what? I have other fun things going on and different clients. But I'll tell all of your viewers and listeners what I think about it. So mini consulting session.
Great. Well, let's go. Let's hit the lineup.
All right. So GLP-1s in the workplace. GLP-1 use is on the rise. I actually read an article in the New York Times yesterday that estimated 1 in 5 Americans now has used a GLP-1, which is even higher than the 1 in 8 I clocked in a recent article. So it's happening. It's changing how people are dressing and maybe how they're talking about one another's appearances. I've listened to your show enough to know talking about appearances in the workplace is not the best idea. But did you read this article?
Yeah, I sure did. And I've had people ask me about this, and I agree. It's a fascinating topic. I mean, there's a lot of different angles. I mean, first of all, companies are spending a lot more money through their insurance plans paying for GLP-1 drugs. And, there's a lot of attention on what's being spent, not as much attention on what's being saved as a result of that expenditure. And probably that number outnumbers what's being spent. But, we're not going to talk about that aspect here. What has happened is that, either people who are using GLPs find themselves in awkward conversations with colleagues who are asking about their appearance or changes in their appearance, or those who are not using GLPs are either being by some questioned why they're not using GLPs, or because others are talking about them so much, feeling uncomfortable about not using them and not participating in those discussions. So, it's one of those areas, Liz, that is not necessarily a legal issue. on its face. It could be. I mean, certainly making comments about someone's, appearance or weight, in certain cities, like in New York City, talking about someone's weight could be a legal issue, but not in every city and not in every state in the US. But like talking about appearance, and especially if you're only doing it for a certain category of people, like if you're only talking about female employee appearance or, only male appearance, that could cause an issue. But here it's a little different. It's like, this is obviously something that's like big in our culture. I think you were telling me before the show, every time you write about it, your Substack is, has incredible response to GLP related issues. So why shouldn't we be able to talk about it at work, I think is the question that a lot of people have. And my advice would be, just like with any other issue that touches appearance or, personal issues, you got to be sensitive to who the listener is and how they may feel about it. And, work is not always the place to talk about everything. I mean, it's just not. We have said on this show many times, you don't have a right to free speech at work. You can't just say whatever you want. You need to be mindful in particular of how what you say will be received by the person you're saying it to.
Yeah, I think in general, making comments about somebody's weight in either direction is inappropriate. If they bring it up, I think that's a very different situation. This isn't about the workplace, but just in general, I would prefer to tell somebody like, you look very happy, or you look so strong, something like that. Weight is just so charged, and there are a million reasons somebody may have lost weight that might have nothing to do with using a GLP-1. So I don't know. I think you have to be really careful and sensitive to things that we don't know people are going through. But I think this piece was in Business Insider, and something I found interesting is that HR departments are now being brought in. Is this going to become part of like employee handbooks or HR manuals, how to handle this when it comes up?
I would imagine. I mean, it definitely falls within their purview of something they should be helping people with, and obviously people have different views on how helpful HR is or isn't, but if you're an HR executive, this should definitely be on your radar screen. And, my advice would be, don't just ignore someone if they come to you with concerns around this topic. You need to find a playbook and create a playbook for how to deal with this issue, because it's a real one. There are a lot of people on these drugs. There are also a lot of people who are just engaged in different ways to lose weight, as you said, there's really been an increased focus on wellness and fitness, probably because of your newsletter. But it could be for a variety of reasons. And by the way, it could also be for something, less, like more serious reasons, like someone is dealing with a disease or, an illness. So certainly HR folks should be prepared to deal with it. I mean, if you're not, I think you're sort of not really keeping track of what you should be for your job.
Yeah, well, the numbers are just going to keep going up, and if somebody's not on one, chances are they're curious about them. So I think this is going to be a topic that probably comes up in different ways on future episodes, certainly in my Substack.
Yeah, but generally you would say, would you say, like, you wouldn't automatically go up to someone and say, are you on a GLP? You look great. Like you would wait for them to raise it with you. Is that the etiquette?
Yeah, I interviewed an etiquette expert for a story that I published on Best Case Scenario right before the holidays to ask her about this, because when families gather, particularly around food, that can be a time that inappropriate questions come up, or people just want to handle it appropriately and sensitively and aren't really sure to. And that was her advice, is to never bring up somebody's, not just their weight, but their appearance, anything, unless they bring it up and seem engaged and like they wanted to talk about it and disclose it. So yeah, definitely don't go up and ask somebody that, whether at work or elsewhere.
Yeah, be smart.
Be smart. Be a good human.
Be a good human.
Okay, so switching gears to board seats. I know you all have talked about this before. This is very much your world, the rules and regulations and how boards are created. With the Trump administration and everything that has changed with DEI policies and rules and how companies are trying to navigate that, it has impacted how the makeup of boards. So what's going on there?
Yeah, there was an article in Bloomberg is where we saw this, reporting on something that I've certainly been hearing and seeing in my work. But, basically 61 of the top 100 companies in the S&P have eliminated diversity criteria for selecting future board members. Like, this is not quotas, let's be clear. This is just saying that diversity is something you'd like to have on your board. And over the last 10 years, there's
Seems
been
like a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, we talk a lot about why diversity is important. And I think you would agree. It's important to have, and I think I said it recently within the last 2 weeks, you need to have different voices in the room, period. And especially in a board role. And I assume when you were building your editorial teams, that was something that was important to you as well, right?
100%. Having a variety of perspectives and people of all different backgrounds and experiences and, coming at topics with different points of view, that just made our content better. It elevated it. You don't want, 20 people in a room who think the exact same way. They're not going to find the problems or the weaknesses. So I think what's also ironic about this is that as managers, or I'll just speak for myself, I did management trainings over the course of my career that executives paid a lot of money, that their boards approved that investment to send me to trainings where we learned exactly that diversity of perspectives and different types of people from different backgrounds was not just good, but crucial to the success of the company. So
right.
This is heartbreaking, honestly. And I worry about how it will hurt the companies.
Yeah, and the statistics are pretty shocking. Over the last 10 years, there's actually been a 5% decrease in new diverse directors and 9% decrease in specifically female directors. And in the last year, only 29% of new directors were women. That's down from 46% in 2023. And so part of this backlash against DEI, which I've said many times, was against, a very, very small amount of progress that was being made in equalizing or at least trying to bring some more even numbers to the workplace. It wasn't like all of a sudden, there was a majority of diverse people in the workplace. That was not even close to what was happening. And now it's been completely reversed, scrapped for many companies. My hope is that the companies who really believe in it will continue that work and will continue identifying it as a priority. But this article shows that a lot of companies just took the easy way out and said, we're not going to get in the way of the government. We're not going to suffer repercussions. We're not going to be sued. We're not going to be audited. We're not going to have our transactions blocked. We'd rather just abandon these principles, which is going to take, frankly, a long time to reverse. Even if we have a different, party in the White House after the next election, it's going to take a really long time to reverse, something like this. I mean, corporate thinking does not often shift on a dime. Here it kind of did.
Yeah.
But I think there were other factors at play. But, right now, there's an extreme lack of accountability on corporate action. And this is just one of the ways that it's playing out.
I also worry about how that trickles down onto the teams, not just at the board level, but, if that's the precedent that's being set at the top, then.
Yeah, I mean, boards are supposed to be the ones holding executives accountable.
Right.
So if the board is all men and the executives are all men, that's not going to work.
It's not. All right. Well, you get a lot of questions from readers, as do I. I get a lot of different types of questions, I imagine. But did somebody ask you something interesting this week?
Yeah.
A listener question.
For sure. A listener question asked, would it be okay for me to quit my job if my boss left me on the Decoy plane?
Ooh, what did you say?
I said, of course. I mean, you could quit for any reason you want to, right? Most employees are at will. Very few have employment agreements that specifically state the reasons for which they could quit. But all kidding aside, there are issues that come up that are principled issues, and some people quit over them, some don't. Suck it up. I mean, these are the most difficult types of decisions you can make in your career. I mean, people come to me all the time and say, I witnessed this, or I saw this, or my boss asked me to lie about something. Here it's a boss abandoning you and putting your life in danger. I think that's a pretty easy one. But would you quit if you were on the Decoy plane?
Never even be in a position to be on that man's Decoy plane. But yeah, I mean, that's terrifying. I think what was so disturbing about how this unfolded, if at first it's like a funny story. I mean, it's not funny. It's very serious. But the president has to be, they sneak him off of Air Force One. And was he like in a pantry cart or something?
Catering truck.
Catering cart,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But some of his highest level team members knew that he had been squirreled away, right? And they just sat on the plane, even knowing that. It's not like they found out after they landed. Like they rode the plane with that knowledge.
Right. It's a pretty empty feeling, I would say. And it must have been a pretty scary plane ride too. I mean, thinking that they were under threat of being bombed.
Yeah, exactly.
But look, I mean, in a normal corporate environment, if you're leading a team, and you could speak to this, I mean, part of your responsibility is to take care of your team and look out for them and look out for their, not just their
safety.
Career development, but their safety.
Yes, 100%. I don't mean to flex here, but I have ridden on Air Force Two, not on a Decoy mission, but I wrote a cover profile of Dr. Jill Biden when President Joe Biden was the president. And I was embedded with her and her team, and we were in Denver, and we were riding the plane to go to Minneapolis next. I'm going somewhere with this story because it was an insane experience. First of all, being on that plane, having like Secret Service agents all around me. She was in the back. Nobody ever saw her. You didn't see her come on. So I could kind of visualize how that went down when I read this recent piece. All the coverage about it. And then we take off, and this is embarrassing to admit, but I like closed my eyes for a minute and started to doze off, which you probably shouldn't do on Air Force Two. I'm like,
right.
And in that like hazy state, I was like, I feel like we're not very high in the air. And I turned to the man next to me who, was some sort of security Secret Service person. And I'm like, what's going on? And he just said, he pointed his finger, like, look in the aisle. So I tucked my head over, and you could see all the way into the cockpit. And it, like, a bird had flown onto the plane, its windshield, and split the windshield, not split it. It wasn't open, but it had cracked it to the point that they felt unsafe going any higher. And so they were just like circling at a low level to try to figure out what to do next. So that was terrifying for a different reason. I mean, I felt safe in the sense that like, if anybody can figure this out and protect us, it's this team of people. But ultimately they landed the plane in Denver and canceled her Minneapolis appearance. And all the little minions like me, who was, just a journalist along for the ride, they were like, all right, go figure out how to get yourself home. Go fly commercial.
Yeah, some less glamorous.
So they dropped us off at the curb of the Delta terminal, and I was like, okay, now I'm going to go figure out how to get home.
Yikes.
So that's pretty crazy. Yeah.
All right. At least you didn't have to leave in the catering cart with.
I did not leave in the catering
chicken
cart.
cacciatore.
No, they were.
And
that's right. They were very nice about it. Exactly. They were really nice about it. All right. Moving on to a topic I am very excited about. As a writer, I kind of geek out watching what people say, and as I've written them, what I'm going to say. Goodbye messages when you leave a job. So this was a piece in the Financial Times. Right. I believe it focused on investment bankers or finance world, as this outlet often does. But this happens in every industry, no matter where you are. People leave for a new job, or they're let go, and maybe they have some negotiation about how that transition goes down. So it's really complicated and can be really charged. Like, what are you supposed to say? What do you advise your clients when they're in this position?
Well, my clients are not always leaving under voluntary circumstances. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But one thing we we actually spend a lot of time negotiating if it's not voluntary, is this very topic, the goodbye message. Because if someone's leaving sort of suddenly or unexpectedly, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny of what the goodbye message says and what it may mean, etc. But in general, I advise my clients, less is more. Like, yes, you're going to send out this blast that tells people why you're leaving and where you're going or that you're retiring or whatever, but it's not the time to tell the whole story, chapter and verse. You can, say that to the people who first of all, not everyone cares about it. So like, they don't even want to hear it. But
yeah,
you
you're
can
like 10-page long list of accomplishments over your tenure.
Right. Like, most people don't want to read that.
Cares?
So you could send a generic, like, sort of short couple paragraphs,
Couple paragraphs, that's long.
a couple short paragraphs, like, it was a great time here, blah, blah, blah. Here's one or two things I'm really proud of. Thank your team, thank your boss, give your contact information, promise to stay in touch. And then the people you really care about, you can send them a separate message from your personal account. Like, people always forget that. I say to people, you could reach out to those people on your personal account. It's totally fine. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's right. I could do that. Or like, people are going to want to go out to lunch with you or for a drink or a coffee or whatever. You could use that time to tell them whatever you want to tell them. But the blast to the company is not the place to send 10 pages and talk about all your plans for the future. What do you think?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts. We're talking specifically about like, okay, I'm blasting this out to my team or organization, depending on its size. Right. So that's one thing, the part that's in your voice. And then depending on the situation, the company might separately be sending an announcement to everybody, right? And maybe it's one of multiple updates, or it's just an update like such and such person is moving on and we wish them well. But you get involved to help with that messaging too, right? Because those are kind of, it's like part one and then part two.
I try to. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. But it's really important. And, when I'm doing really senior transitions, like a CEO, if I'm representing a CEO, a public company CEO, or where it's going to be like a newsworthy event, we might bring in communications consultants specifically to draft the statements and work with us on it. I mean, it becomes a very important item. For a lot of those people, their severance is predetermined in their contracts or whatever. But this is the one thing about, what are the words you use to help you get a next job or not have the press chase after you for further details. Like, there's a lot of negotiating over these statements, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how high profile your role is, that could be picked up by news outlets. So you want to make sure that all of the wording is buttoned up. In terms of a personal goodbye message, as an editor, I think we cared so deeply about them. I think there's like a lot of personality and thought that went into it. So I kind of love them. I always loved watching them. And there were times where I'm like, oh, that was so quippy and cute. Good one,
Right.
But I totally agree. I think less is more. I think be positive. Like, maybe that's obvious, but right? Like, be like grateful for the time, the work you did together, keep it pretty simple and tight. And then, like, find those people who you want to stay in touch with and grab coffee with them or send them an email when you get to the other side from
take advantage
personal
of it.
Email. The last note I'll say on this, and this might be like a media thing, so Laura would probably have thoughts, but a big thing in my world is also how you use social media to message things like this. When do you announce that you're leaving? What do you say? Is it a carousel? Is it a reel? How long is the caption? What do you say? So it's hard in media, Peter.
Yeah, I totally understand. I mean, I've negotiated. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I've worked with the clients, as I said, to negotiate these things, and then like a week later, I see their social media posts, and I'm just like, what did you just do? Like something that is totally
it's like the doormat to the welcome mat to your brand and future opportunities.
Yeah. So part of my standard messaging now to clients is like, okay, we're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about the stuff we're doing with the company, but we're also, I need to see your LinkedIn announcement that you're going to make. Whatever else you're going to post, like, needs to go through me. And they're like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. So you don't screw this whole deal up, But another tip I would give people is like, don't leave it to the last minute. I mean, I've
Yeah.
I've had to write 2 of these, and I gave myself that advice, and I didn't follow it, unfortunately. And it should be thoughtful and it should be concise. But definitely, once you decide you want to leave, you should start writing it, I think, and don't leave it till the end.
Yeah. I've written a bunch over the years, and I would agree with that. Start workshopping it in your brain and edit yourself a few times.
Yeah.
Maybe one last piece of advice on that front, whether it's the social media, the eventual social media post, or the goodbye email, like have a friend read it if you don't have a Peter or Laura in your world, like just to vet it. Like, does this sound okay? Is this over the top? Is this too sterile and clinical? You want to hit the right note, so that might be a good place to get a second opinion.
Yeah. I received a retirement letter from someone recently. That seemed like a bit much.
I didn't know we were doing that.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Christmas letter. Now, the Christmas letter I do enjoy. And I imagine you've
the
seen
holiday
that.
with like everything that happened to the family that year. Yeah. Do
like
people
those
still
or
do those?
no?
I stopped doing that. I stopped doing that a long time ago, like 7 years ago.
It's not a common practice anymore, but if
I
you see
love
one,
getting
it's
them.
fun.
I just had to like cut one thing. I had to cut more than one thing, but that was one of them. And now I just hang up everybody else's and admire them.
Right.
Okay, well, speaking of social media and being thoughtful with your messaging on LinkedIn and elsewhere, LinkedIn is trying to crack down on the rise of AI slop that is taking over that platform. Now, I have to confess, I should be much better at LinkedIn. I should use it more often to promote my work and update my network on what I'm doing, and I'm sure that would help me have so many more opportunities. I'm lucky that I'm busy right now, but I'm sure that would come in handy. But part of the reason I can't stand going on LinkedIn is because it is filled with just AI trash. I find it miserable to read. Sorry, but I do.
And boring, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's like you're just like, oh, like you just prompted ChatGPT and it spit out this and you just pasted it. So I think this is a good thing. What do you think?
Yeah. So what we're talking about specifically is if you go on LinkedIn right now and you're reading someone's post and you click on the 3 dots in the corner, the upper right hand corner of their post, there's a bunch of options, like save, share, like, dislike. And now there's an option that says seems like AI slop. So you're like basically reporting it back to LinkedIn saying this doesn't seem like a human wrote it, right? I totally agree with you, and a lot of people have been saying this lately. LinkedIn is such a valuable, or could be such a valuable networking and business development platform, and now it's just turned into this like AI machine. Because people just want to put out content, and they just put out this like terrible content because it's easy to do, and they're not thoughtful about it. And I would just say, like, from a career and networking perspective, like, relying on AI entirely for your LinkedIn post is the last thing you should be doing. You should write it yourself. It should be in your voice. It should be relevant to what you're doing. And then maybe you could use AI to like edit it and touch it up. But like certainly, I've heard from consultants who've said, you should just, you should chop up this podcast and have AI chop it up and do posts for you. And I was like, I don't know how much people will like that. It's very easy to scroll through that stuff. And now you're getting reported. And, on top of that, and we were talking about this before the show, like at the same time we have Claude putting watermarks on Claude generated, content. So all this stuff is like coming up at once. And we know that people generally don't like AI, feel threatened by it, all the feelings that go on with AI, right?
Yeah, I think it's wild how much has happened in such a short, it's been like over the past just 2-ish weeks. For me, because I write on Substack at least a couple of times a week, I was really surprised and actually heartened because Substack also just entered this space with wanting to alert readers when something is AI. So they partnered with Pangram, which is an AI detection tool. There's a lot of debate about how accurate those tools are, but this particular one claims it's gone through extensive testing and research, and, I don't know what the numbers are. 99.9% of the time, it can tell you when something is human generated versus AI generated. And so now on Substack, if you read somebody's post, much like LinkedIn, if you click on the three buttons, it will tell you a pangram estimate for how much of it is AI generated versus human generated.
Wow.
Yeah. And people were freaking out on Substack, and I suspect
the writers were freaking out.
The writers are freaking out because all the Substack writers are also using AI, and I find it repulsive because theoretically you're on Substack because you love to report and write and flex that muscle, and you want to put it out in the world, not. And I had personally noticed writers that I loved that I think were writing in their own voice is suddenly sounding very AI slop-like. So I've been unsubscribing to Substacks left and right. So I was like, this is awesome. You can either tell if something's AI, or
so that's been like a criteria for you. If it's too much AI, unsubscribe.
If it feels AI, I immediately unsubscribe. I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want that. And I suspect that people will post less often to Substack because they're embarrassed to have their work be so easily discernible now that it's not human generated. I will say Substack gives writers the option to opt out. So whatever. So the toggle doesn't exist.
Kind of telling.
Like an admission, right? It's like an admission that I'm using AI to write everything. And they also gave writers the option to create an AI statement. So if somebody clicks on the three buttons, when it tells you how much is AI versus human, your little statement will come up. I don't know. Personally, I've been thinking about, should I do that? But I'm like, no, it doesn't matter because I am a human generated Substack.
Well, I would imagine, I mean, the tough thing is, like, if you're on Substack writing, you're most likely a company of one or maybe two or three. There are some bigger ones, obviously, but mostly it's individuals who are writing. And there are a lot of pressures on them, right? Like to report, write, edit, post, promote, like
totally. It's
all
so
that
much
stuff.
work.
So, AI is supposed to help you be more productive. So, can we just accept it for that? Now, I think if you clicked on the buttons and it says, is this 95% AI generated, that's a problem. But, if it's 15%, I don't know. I mean, then it becomes a question of what is being generated by AI. Is it?
I agree. I think it's a spectrum. It's not black and white, but I will say there was a writer who I clicked on her three buttons just yesterday, and it was 97% AI. And I was like, I knew it. It had gotten so bad. And so, anyway, I think it's interesting that these platforms are cracking down, and it feels like people are getting really tired of all the slop, and they want the content to be valuable. So they're putting these checks and balances in place, and I think it's just going to keep happening.
Yeah, and I think, as I've said many times on this show, you have to be aware of the rules governing AI usage on whatever platform or company you work for. So, now that certain of these models are watermarking the content, if your boss detects it, you better be sure that you've used AI in an appropriate manner that's sanctioned by your company. And you don't want to get caught that way, certainly. So whether you're in school or whether you're at work or whether you're on Substack or whether you're on LinkedIn, you have to be aware of the consequences and you have to be aware of the rules in the first instance. So
yeah, I have a feeling.
Another reminder.
I have a feeling the boss's work might also contain the AI watermark some of the time, but that's just my 2 cents.
I mean, one of the funny things, one of the magazines does I think it's Fortune does a weekly interview with the CEO, and part of it's how do you use AI? And they all say the same thing. It's crazy. They're all well, I have this chief of staff. It feels like a chief of staff. Every morning it tells me what to focus on with my schedule and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, classic chief of staff.
So lame.
Such
so
a
lame.
Fortune, CEO interview. Okay, speaking of bosses, we both worked at Hearst, though we didn't overlap or know each other if we did overlap a long time ago. But there's a beautiful employee gym at the Hearst Tower, which back in the day when I worked at Women's Health as well as Cosmopolitan, I would go to. And I think you've got some listeners and viewers who are curious about the etiquette. Is it okay to use the gym? What happens if you see your boss there? So did you use the Hearst gym?
Oh, I definitely did. And yes. By the way, this is another listener question. This came through specifically someone who was summer interning. Their company has a very big and sort of noted, written about gym. And, we got in a discussion about it, and I asked, well, do you use it? And they said, no way. I don't want to be, A, I don't want to be like working out with my boss, and B, I don't want to be in my normal gym clothes around my colleagues because, it may be uncomfortable. So I've heard some version of both of those issues over the years. So now that you're here, this is the perfect time. This has been on like my list of topics that like one day we would hopefully get to, but here you are. Like, who better to speak on this than you? So,
okay.
What are your views? Should you go to the office gym? Should you use it?
100%. That's an amazing employee perk. There's awesome research about how working out improves your productivity, makes you think more clearly, reduces stress. Now, granted, I worked at Women's Health, but when I would see one of my editors in their gym clothes and cross paths with them on the elevator, I would actually be super excited because I'm like, they are going to be so on it this afternoon. They are going to come to me with like the best story idea after whatever workout they're doing. So I am a big fan. I guess that's kind of a separate issue. Should you hide, sneaking away? Why do we even say that
Right.
to go to the gym?
People are normally concerned that if you're seen there, that you're like a slacker. You'll be perceived as a slacker in some way.
Well, I agree. That perception is rampant, and I do not think people are slackers for going to the gym. It makes you smarter, sharper, faster, more efficient, more creative, all the things. Now, I do think there is an etiquette when you're there. If you see somebody whether it's a teammate, a junior person on your team, or the CEO, and I have seen the CEO there, don't like go and interrupt their workout to say hi. Don't, when they're doing treadmill sprints, that's not the moment to go up and reintroduce yourself and tell them your big idea. Give them their space, let them do their thing. But if you walk by them or happen to go up to the water fountain at the same time, what I have done in the past is reintroduce myself. Hey, I'm Liz Plosser. I'm the editor-in-chief of Women's Health or whatever. I think it's just like a nice touch point. And I think you become more memorable than if you were to reintroduce yourself when you're crossing paths like on the company escalator.
Totally. I mean, I think, so you asked earlier, did I use the gym? Yes, I did. And I found it a lot of those moments where you could, look, as long as you're there responsibly, right? Like you're not missing a meeting to go to the gym.
Yeah, of
you're not
course.
like, you're not on deadline. So you're there. Also, I think if you're a leader of a company that has gyms, like it's important to use them to show employees that it's okay to be there.
Good point.
So that's another thing. And, like I just read about this law firm opening a new office in London where they had a gym on each floor of the law firm. And
that seems a bit excessive.
Yeah, but look, it does, sort of emphasize that it's an accepted perk,
access.
Right?
Yeah.
So you should take advantage of it, be responsible. And as you said, like you can find opportunities there to make yourself known to company leaders in a way that is friendly and not threatening and like, not showing off or whatever. Like just saying hi to someone and telling them who you are is like great, do it. Why not?
And then the last thing I would say is just like read the room. Like if everyone's wearing the provided gray t-shirt, wear the provided gray t-shirt. You don't have to wear your fanciest aloe outfit. You know what I mean? Just like be cool, like fit in, be part of the culture.
Yeah, I would say unless you work at like a fitness company, like you should be wearing the most boring outfit possible to the company gym.
Even better.
Just to, like if you're there just to work out, like then just do that. You're not there to like make that kind of impression, no matter who you are, like, either way. And if the companies should provide clothing. First of all, it just makes the whole thing easier, the laundry, the whole situation, but also avoids these problems.
Yes.
So we're both fans.
We're both fans. I love it. We agree. I can't believe how quickly this has gone, but I'm pretty sure it's time for Heroes and Zeros. Yes?
Yeah, it is. Everyone's favorite part of the show. So we go with zeros first. So and you go first. So who's your zero?
All right. Well, I shouldn't be smiling because this makes me very sad. And, if I brought politics into my Substack, it would become a political Substack. So I have to physically restrain myself every week. But I can say it here because it feels relevant.
Safe
I am
space.
so sick of politicians getting involved in vaccine policies. And this just happened again recently. Trump came out again recommending a different vaccine schedule, separating the main MMR vaccine where they're all bundled together, which makes it much easier for families and kids to get them and stay on the scheduling track. I'm all for continuing to reevaluate the evidence and keeping an open mind if the science changes, but politicians who aren't doctors or researchers or in the lab have no business trying to shake things up and making completely false claims such as vaccines are related to autism rates.
Important statement. I totally agree with you.
Glad I had a platform to say it loudly.
There you go. Yeah, happy to provide it for you.
What's your zero?
My zero is much less serious. I would say, I was just talking about this with another lawyer today. The whole concept of the summer being a slower time of year in business is just dead in America. And that's too bad because, people need time to recharge. People need time to regroup, spend time with their families and their friends. And it just doesn't seem that way, right now. The pressure to be productive, another negative side effect of AI is like people just work more, they work around the clock, they're doing things. And there's a lot of stories about these hero programmers who are working 24 hours a day or whatever. I mean, there's nothing heroic about that.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. It's not healthy. It's really not even good for output. And I can tell you as someone who reviews a lot of AI output from clients and potential clients, it's not always good.
Yeah.
So summer's an important time for people to rest and recharge. They should do it, and it's sad to see, I guess it's good for the economy, but, maybe not for our overall health going on.
Yeah.
Plus, I love just chilling out in the summer, so, oh well.
I know it doesn't feel like a summer slowdown at all. So I fully agree with you. And now people can control their AI co-working coding bots from their
Agents.
phones, right?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. They're agents. So it's like even if you're walking down the street, you could just be telling it what to do. Yeah, it's not good for our mental, emotional health. None of it.
So who's your hero, or what is your hero of the week?
Well, one wonderful recharging, restful thing that's happened to me this summer is my new obsession, which is with sauna culture. I've always loved sauna and cold plunge, both of which I've written about extensively on Best Case Scenario and the health benefits. But yeah, I've started going so regularly, like 3 times a week, and I'm sleeping more soundly. I'm meeting new people. It has led to a series of story assignments. I'm even teaching myself how to do something called off goose, which is like this towel waving ritual. It's so weird and quirky, and I'm on an adventure, and it's pretty awesome. It's a big hero in my life.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's fun following you as you do it.
As I awkwardly share my journey on social media.
Yeah, but
I think it's
also
important though to show when you suck at something, not just the finished product.
Well, I mean, it's one of the advantages. People ask all the time, like, what are some of the advantages of like working for yourself? And
yeah,
one of it is like you could develop new passions and follow them,
Yeah.
and this is one for you that's like leading you around the world and to all these great new things,
I get so lucky.
Which is pretty awesome. I mean, I was talking to another client the other day who like found this niche like within her world that she's in that she never even thought about, that turns out she's really good at, and now is building a business around it. I mean, that's kind of cool, the ability to experiment and scale your passions.
So cool.
Very cool. So my heroes are 2 sisters who live in Kentucky. Their names are Delcia Bear and Ida Huddleston. They live in Maysville, Kentucky. They are farmers, and they are refusing $26 million from allegedly Meta to sell their farmland for a data center. Wow. And they were profiled in the Wall Street Journal this weekend. It's an amazing story. It's incredible, to see 2 people who, we were talking before about making decisions based on principle.
Exactly.
They are turning away a life-altering amount of money because they don't believe in what's going to happen to their land and sort of the intentions of the company and what's going to happen to their town and what this land has meant to their family, etc. And I think it's a great story, so people should check it out. And we're hearing more and more about this across the country as part of this battle against data centers is just the lack of trust that people have in big tech, which now includes AI and includes data centers. So
I haven't read that yet. That is an incredible story. That is so courageous and so much integrity, and what an amazing example to show people you can stand your ground and believe in something.
right, and money isn't everything, and that's
Right.
that's another thing in this age of the rich getting richer and the income disparity gap growing. The people in the upper class just think that money can buy their way out of any problem or confrontation, and that's not always the case. And kudos to these sisters for showing that to Meta or whoever it is. So,
Well said.
all right. So,
It's a good one
Liz,
to
we
end
did
on.
it. We did it.
That was so fun. I hope you'll have me back.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, would you come back if we needed you to?
I'll come back as a guest. I'll sub in for you or for Laura whenever you want me to. I'm always here for you all, and I can bring plenty more wellness topics into the employment and comm space. Should you ever
Yeah,
want them?
great. Well, thank you for co-hosting in a pinch, and also. But that's because I'm not that organized. But thank you for jumping in, and thanks to everyone for listening and watching across the bar. Thank you, Sadie, for producing and editing, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks. Take care.